Hello there, it's Samantha. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're here, hi. My name is Samantha, as I just said, and this is my channel where I talk all about books. Anyway, today I'm coming to you with a recent reads video. I've decided that for now I want to switch to doing these instead of monthly wrap-ups because I just find that monthly wrap-ups tend to be kind of stressful in a way for me. I've been reading a lot of books recently, so when I have like 10 books to talk about, I end up having about 40 minutes of footage to edit, and that just is very overwhelming. Also, I find that sometimes it gets to the end of the month and I don't really remember that much about all of the books that I've read because there are so many of them. So yeah, I find that I can't review them as much as I'd like to. I think I'm gonna switch to this format for a while and just talk about 5 books each time. And yeah, so that's what I think I'm gonna do, or I'll switch to doing like a mid-month wrap-up and then an end of the month wrap-up. I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided entirely, but I'm trying it out. Let me know what you think. I mean, to be honest, I'm gonna do what's easiest for me. So if you don't like this, that's a shame. But in this video, I'm actually gonna talk about 6 books because I'm gonna talk about one very briefly because I actually ended up DNFing it. So yeah, let's just get into the 5 books and the DNF. As I said, I DNF'd a book. I got a book called This Is Not a Love Story by Mary Hargreaves for review, and I really didn't like it. I read 38% of this book, so I did give it a fair shot. It was over 100 pages, which I tend to, like, if I get to the 100 page mark and I'm not enjoying something, I'll probably DNF it unless I know that it's probably gonna get better. But I just really did not enjoy this book. It follows a main character called Maggie, and basically Maggie's life is a bit of a mess. She's in this job that she hates. She's in a relationship with a guy that she just really doesn't love, and so she's just generally not very happy with her life. So at the beginning of the book, she breaks up with this boyfriend. She decides that she doesn't want to do her job anymore and just wants to change various things about herself. But Maggie was the most annoying character I've ever read from, and she was extremely rude to everyone around her. I also just found that the humor really missed the mark for me. For example, this is the quote that pushed me over the edge, and after I read this, I was like, I am out. And basically, she was at a yoga class and she farted in the yoga class, and then she ran out of the yoga class, and she said, what type of sick freak would carry on enjoying their yoga lesson whilst the rest of the room rhythmically inhaled their anus gas? After reading that line, I was like, I'm out. So I did get this book for review from NetGalley. I just decided that I wasn't going to push through it because if I did continue reading it, I know that I would hate it and it would be a rant review. So yeah, I don't want to rant about this. It's got quite a few good reviews at the moment, so I'm sure that a lot of people are enjoying it, but it just wasn't for me personally, so I decided to DNF it. And now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the books that I actually read. So I recently read Roomies by Christina Lauren. I borrowed the audiobook from my library and I ended up listening to it in about 2 days. This basically follows our main character Holland, and Holland for months has been going to the same subway station on this particular day to see this musician who is busking, who she has a massive crush on. And basically something happens to Holland, everything I learned in the book. She gets into a sort of accident, and so Calvin comes to the rescue, and basically then Calvin kind of disappears and she's very confused as to why, and she really wants him back. And her uncle runs a musical and they need someone to replace the current like main actor because he's leaving. And so to get Calvin back, she manages to get him an audition at her uncle's musical, and he, you know, does a great job. It becomes clear why he disappeared, and that's because he is in the country illegally. He's Irish and he came to the US on a student visa, and he decided to stay after his visa ran out. So because she really likes Calvin and wants him to be part of this musical, she impulsively decides to marry him, and they live together and everything. And yeah, that's basically the storyline. I ended up giving this book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I definitely did not enjoy it as much as I enjoyed The Unhoneymooners, also by Christina Lauren. I read that in April and I loved it, so I really thought I would love everything they write, but I just really did not enjoy this very much. It was very predictable. I do find that a lot of romance is predictable, to be fair. But yeah, it was very predictable and just like not that memorable. So yeah, it was fine, but yeah, it just wasn't my favorite. And also I listened to the audiobook and I just really didn't like the narrator. So I think if I had read this physically, I probably would have given it a higher rating, like maybe 3.5. But because I didn't like the narrator and I didn't love the story, I only gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was one that I got for review from NetGalley. I never said the name of this book. It's The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This book is kind of like a retelling of Les Mis with some Six of Crows aspects in there, and it's basically set in an alternative historical Paris where the French Revolution has failed. So it follows kind of the aftermath of that, and our main character Nina is like part of the criminal underworld, which is called the Court of Miracles, and basically there is this like plot to try and overthrow the monarchy. There are thieves and assassins and all sorts of, you know, the normal criminal stuff. At the beginning of the book, Nina's father sells her older sister to the Guild of Flesh, which is basically like the prostitution guild. So she's determined to do anything she can to get her back. And then throughout the novel, she also kind of gains like sort of like an adoptive sister called Etty, and will do anything to keep her safe. As I said, I read an art copy of this book, so the finished copy could have been a lot better than what I read, but I was very, very confused, and so much happened that I can't really tell you anything that happened because it was a bit too much going on. I really enjoyed the Paris setting, and I think that Kester Grant did a fantastic job of setting that atmosphere, so I'll definitely read other things that she writes. It was just that this particular book was not for me. I really enjoyed the relationship between Nina and Etty, and I enjoyed seeing them grow throughout the book. The writing was absolutely beautiful, and as I said, she created such a wonderful atmosphere, and I also really enjoyed the fact that there was like this love square element. There were like 3 different love interests that were possible, and I would love to see who she chooses, but I don't think I'll continue on. I don't know, we'll see. However, as I said, there was just way too much going on, so it was very confusing for me personally. But as I said, again, this might have been part of the problem in the arc, but not in the finished copy. And I was also a bit confused as to why it was marketed as fantasy, because there was no fantasy element in it, I didn't think. I would say that this was a historical fiction, not a fantasy, unless I missed it. But I really do think that I'm in the minority here with my sort of negative feelings towards this book, because this book has had so many positive reviews. So I think that possibly the final copy is more polished than the art copy that I got. I ended up rating it 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. But yeah, as I said, take my review with a pinch of salt because I did read the art copy and this does have really great reviews so far. The next book that I read was On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This book follows our main character, Bree, who is 16 years old. She wants to become one of the greatest rappers of all time, like her late father, so that she can get out of the neighborhood where she lives. And her mother unexpectedly loses her job, and so it becomes not just that she wants to become a famous rapper, but that she needs to try and help contribute to the bills. But her mom's actually very against her decision to become a rapper. I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, which may seem kind of low, but I did actually enjoy this a lot. I really loved the relationships between the characters. I just really loved seeing the friendships, and also the relationship that Bree had with her older brother and also with her mother. And I also loved the fact that this book covered so many topics to do with social injustice, which are obviously really important today. The reason why I didn't give it a higher rating was because I didn't really like Bree as a character. I found her to be a little bit annoying at times, but I did love the side characters a lot, and I did like the storyline. And I didn't dislike Bree. It's just that she was a bit annoying to me at times. But overall, I did really enjoy this, and as I said, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo. This book follows our main character, Amanda Hardy, and she has just moved in with her father, and she's attending a new school, and all she wants is to make friends and fit in and just enjoy her final year of high school. But Amanda has a secret that she hasn't told anyone, not even Grant, who's the guy that she started to fall for, and that is that at her old school, she used to be called Andrew. I really enjoyed this book. I really loved the friendships in this book, and I also loved the fact that we had the present storyline as well as flashbacks to Amanda's past and how she transitioned. I think that this book was very beautifully written. I really enjoyed Amanda as a character. I loved her friends and her relationships with her family members. I loved seeing how they changed throughout the book, and so I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I only knocked it down half a star because it was quite a short book, so I think that there were some scenes that could have been developed a little bit more. Like there were some times when we like jumped like a week in time. I do understand that like the week could have been kind of like not that interesting, but there were certain things I would have liked to see. But I do think that the book was very beautifully written, and I loved reading Amanda's story, and I think this is actually the first book that I've read with a trans main character. I've read books with trans side characters, but never with a main character, and I think this book was just a really great book, and I think that it would be a really good one for a lot of young adults to read, to kind of learn a little bit more, as well as doing further research and reading other things as well. But I think that this is potentially a good starting point. But as I said, I cannot speak to representation. I will be linking an Own Voices review down below. I'll also put the triggers down below in the description for that book so that you know. And the last book that I read was actually a poetry collection, and that was Aphrodite Made Me Do It by Tristan Mattier. I heard Whitney from Whitney Novels talking about this book. It's been on my Goodreads shelf for a while, and I recently got Scribd and I found it on there, and I was like, oh my god, I really want to read this, because I actually really enjoy poetry, but I rarely read it because poetry collections tend to be pretty expensive, so I don't tend to gravitate towards buying them. But as I said, it was on Scribd, and I'll probably buy it because I really loved it. But basically, this poetry collection has sort of, I think it had 6 sections to it. The first section is from like Aphrodite's point of view, and the second section is from like the poet's point of view. And I really enjoy that because it's kind of like response to things that Aphrodite had said, and it's kind of like Aphrodite is talking to the poet and the poet is responding. And I really enjoyed that. It's a very empowering and feminist poetry collection, and also has LGBT themes in it as well. And I just really loved it. I thought it was really beautiful. There were also images throughout, which I really loved. I ended up giving it a a 5 out of 5 stars. It was very beautiful and raw, and I just loved reading it so much. I read it in like an hour, I think, and I just loved it. And I think, as I said, I'll probably buy it because yeah, it's beautiful and I loved it. There are also a lot of trigger warnings for this, so I will put those in the description as well. So those are the 5 books that I read recently and the one DNF that I had. As I said, let me know what you think of this format, but I'll probably do what's easiest for me. But that's all that I have for today's video, so I hope you liked it. If you did, please give a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!